Okay, well now we're all familiar with the conics. The question is, what if someone gives us an algebraic equation? Can we figure out which conic it is? All right, well, the circle is pretty easy. So let's take a look at the standard form for conic sections centered at HK, and let's just review and start with the circle, which is, I think, pretty easy. It's just x minus h, quantity squared, plus y minus k, quantity squared equals r squared. R represents the radius of the circle, and the center is at h, comma, k. Not a big deal. Now, the other ones become a little bit more interesting. And we lose a little bit of the symmetry. So, in fact, now we'll have various horizontal and vertical axes, depending upon the situation. So the ellipse, of course, looks very much like a circle, except now we have the quantity equals 1, and we're dividing the x by an a squared and the y by a b squared, when in fact the ellipse is sort of shaped like this. And when the ellipse is shaped sort of this way, then in fact we have this form. The hyperbola is exactly the same shape as the ellipse, except that this plus becomes a minus. So that's not a big deal. And then the parabola, of course, definitely does have a different feel to it, because we don't have an x squared, we just have x alone. And in this case, we see we've got the y something squared, and this is going to be a parabola that's going to open up like this or like this, horizontally. Or this one, which is a little bit more familiar to us, this is a function where we see the parabola being happy face or sad face, depending upon the p. All right, so anyway, that's the sort of the general gist of these things, just to sort of summarize. But let's take a look at some examples and see if we can identify which is which. Kind of like a game show. So now it's identify the conic. That's right, you guessed it. Settle down, settle down. And now here's our first contestant. All right, this contestant comes all the way from the coordinate plane. X plus 3 quantity squared divided by 6 squared minus y minus 1 quantity squared divided by 5 squared equals 1. I see the 1, I see the squares divided by perfect squares. I see a minus sign. That clues me off. This is looking very hyperbolic. So this is actually a hyperbola. And in fact, it's a hyperbola with a horizontal axis. And in fact, we could even sort of say where the center of this thing is in a way. The center is going to be at -3, 1. So there you have it. All right, let's take a look at our next contestant. Bring out our next contestant, please. All the way from a coordinate plane. X plus 5 equals 1 over 24 times the quantity y plus 3 all squared. I see that the x is actually not squared, and the y's are squared. This is telling me I'm thinking this is a parabola. I have y squared, so in fact this is going to be a parabola that's going to have a horizontal axis of symmetry. And I see the 1 over 24 is positive, so it's going to be a happy face parabola, but on its side, so it's going to look like this. And in some sense, well, the vertex, the exact location of the vertex is going to be at -5, comma, -3. So we have identified that one. And you can see here's the generic form. And you can see how it conforms to that absolutely perfectly, absolutely perfectly. All right, let's bring out our final contestant. Let's see if we can get it. Bring out final contestant. Oh, it's coming in this way. Look at that. Wow. All right. Quantity x plus 3 all squared divided by 4 squared plus y minus 7 all squared divided by 9 squared equals 1. I see the 1. I see the squares. I see the squares. I see a plus. These numbers are different. This tells me this is going to be an ellipse. And I see that, in fact, even though it's not written in standard form, since this 9 squared is larger than the 4 squared in standard form, really the y should be written first. That's right. The a is actually the 9. So this was an ellipse that was camouflaged ever so slightly. And so I see, in fact, this has a vertical major axis, which means that, in fact, we're going to be going up and down a length that is greater than this length. So we're going to go up and down, 9 on top, 9 on the bottom, so 18 versus 4 and 4, 8. So it's going to look like this. So even though they try to fool us, you've got to be careful. So just because the x's come first, there's actually a little lesson here. You have to actually look at the denominators to figure out which form is the correct one. Very cool. Hope you enjoyed playing at home, and we hope to see you next week on Identify the Conic. I'll see you there.